it didn't stop there. We went back to the mayors and the folks who hold the edit funding and said, you know, one of the things that you do with your edit funding, at least in our area, is that they provide it to employers to help train their current workers. So they may get $50,000 or $100,000 a year to help train their workforce. And we said, especially to the larger firms, people like Caterpillar, said, you know, every year you get this $50,000. At Caterpillar, what do you think $50,000 is in the training budget? Blink, right? Drop in the bucket, right? So we said, what if that money, instead of going to training 5 people in something, went to training your supply of your next generation of workers? What if you funded this kind of a program knowing that the overall quality of the workforce for manufacturing is going to improve? Would you divert that money there instead? And they said, we sure would. And so they went back to the mayors and commissioners to talk about diverting some of that money into that fund. So we got $100,000 from those folks right off the bat from the county and said, here's $100,000 for folks that live in our community to achieve this certification. Last one we have, if you've ever driven up I-65, of course, Chicago, you drive through wind turbine land up there. And well, the nice thing about that for us is that every time one of those things turns and ticks over, it populates an economic development fund, which just happens to have about $12 million sitting in it after the first 2 years. So it can fund this kind of activity as well. So we get this kind of local funding mix to go with the federal mix, the federal piece. Finally, we said, you know, if we really want a diverse portfolio, we need to have private. So I was lucky enough to be in the room with about 20 of our CEOs, similar to today, when we were proposing the concept for this to them. And are you familiar with Wabash National Corporation, largest manufacturer of tractor trailers in the United States? Well, their chairman said, cool idea, Craig. How are you going to keep it going? I hadn't thought about that yet. So I made something up. and what I made up is now called our Sustainability Fund. But what I said was, remember when we went back, remember when we were talking about the scholarships here? The scholarships were $2,600, right? So I said, all right, so here's the deal for the Sustainability Fund. I asked Mr. Giormini, who's the CEO of Wabash National, I said, here's the plan. I'm going to try not to cause a seizure in anyone here. I'm going to go back to this for a second. But if for your company, I go out and I recruit candidates throughout the region who are interested in working in manufacturing, I make sure that they have the reading for information, locating information, and math skills required to work in manufacturing. I put them through a 5-panel drug screen and they pass. They sign a contract with us and maintain perfect attendance in the class. They complete 140 hours of classroom training. They complete 4 national certification exams. And then they go to work for you. And then, after going to work for you, 90 days later, they're still working for you. Did I add value? I said, yeah, that's value to me. So, if I add value to you, on the 91st day of that person's employment, will you put $1,300 back into the system? So that for every 2 people we train on public money, we can train 1 person on private money. And they all said yes. They all signed on to the Sustainability Fund. So we have a private sector investment as well, along with utility. So we have private money. So we're not beholden to one funding source. In any community, that funding source might look different. The mix might look different, depending on who the partners are, what happens to be lying around on the table, what creativity you come up with. It doesn't really matter if it's make sales or grants or endowments or whatever. But we have long-term sustainability and balance. The things that we've done to date, I told you we launched this initiative with press. We had the Kaizen event that I talked about, we had in November. So just about a year ago today, we had our Kaizen event to kind of fish through what were the real problems that were happening and how can we get to the root cause of this, identify a solution that would work. And then we launched the Advancing Manufacturing Initiative with a press conference on February 8th. On March 17th, we had our first certified production technician. At the time I made this slide, we have 34 partner firms. We have about a little over 45 partner firms right now. We've graduated 90 people from that program already. At the end of each one of those classes, we have a reverse job fair where every one of our candidates gets to meet with every one of our partner firms. And so we mix it up with them to make sure that we get placement along the way. The interesting, one of the fun things about the placement piece, how am I doing on time?
You're fine.
Okay, all right.
You're fine.
I could be up here all day, you know. But the interesting thing about the placement piece of this is that, and this, I had to share this with our students in our first group, because as our first group came near to completion, employers were starting to call me saying, can you send me the resumes now? Can you get them to me? How can I interview people ahead of time? And they were starting to jockey for position, and they were like, well, how do I know the super's not going to get them all? How do I know that so-and-so's not going to get them all? And we had to finally just say, okay, we're gonna quarantine these folks. We're gonna send you all. I mean, it was interesting because everybody was afraid everybody else was going to steal them, which never happens with this group of folks. We never had people fighting over them before, which is kind of fun. So we will send out a summary of their resumes with their names, with no other contact information, so you can't reach out and get them. Honest to goodness, the first job fair that we had, we made them stand out in the hall, the employers, and let the gates go, because some of them were afraid that everybody else would get in there first. So employers were eager to get at the people that had a clue. They really wanted to get people that had that. So they had a lot more than a clue. They had the skills that they wanted. So that's an important. So 90 graduates to date. Through our We Have Jobs Here Now campaign, we've completed 10,254 smart applications. That means that that's not 10,000 different people, but that's 10,000 people that have clicked the thing to say, I want to apply for this job. So there's been 10,000 people who have said, I think I qualify for that job. So those are good connections. That's getting, when employers were saying we can't find people, we gave them a solution and said, here's where you can find people, and it's working. We've awarded over $325,000 in scholarships, and now the employers are saying, okay, we've got this production technician thing nailed, not that we've got enough people, but we've got a process that seems to be developing those all right. We've got some other acute issues that we'd like to talk about. So we're already talking about maintenance technicians and CNC machinists, because we're saying those are our next two hard to find positions, and those are the ones that we want to work at next. So advancing manufacturing is evolving into a way to support the talent needs of manufacturers in the Lafayette area and the Kokomo area. I'll add that. We're kind of filling a gap there as well. To be able to float up these ideas about talent and provide solutions that bring together all the resources of our community partners, all the resources of our business partners, and put them all in one place. So that's what we're doing at the moment, what we've gotten to so far. And so if you were thinking about doing this, again, it's not spray on, it's not something you just bring into the community. You really have to start low and build it up. I can tell you it doesn't necessarily take long now. But these are some steps I think that are important in terms of the process that, if left out, might be something you would regret later. So these are the key components that are kind of behind the scenes. I think a lot of times people just say, we need this program, we need this certified production technician program. But without having champions, without having alignment, without having business partners, without having financial commitment, without having the kinds of things that you need behind it, it's not an initiative, it's a program. And so what we want to be able to do is have a community-wide initiative that supports, as we said at the beginning, a real major part of our economy and our community. That's advanced manufacturing.